He came bleeding to her door. Then, the truth about her husband's death finally came out. In the 1880s, the town of Dusty Ford sat wedged between two dry hills in the New Mexico territory. By day, red dust covered your boots. By night, the wind howled through the gaps in the wooden walls of small houses. In that place, there was a modest little clinic, with a plain wooden sign that read, Dr. Hannah Reed. People still were not quite used to the idea that the doctor was a woman. But after a few winters, when enough folks had been pulled back from the edge of death by Hannah's hands, the whispering stopped. Then they started knocking on her door whenever someone fell off a horse, got sliced with a knife, or shook with fever in the middle of the night. Hannah was nearly 40 now, with a few silver threads at her temples. She had been a nurse during the war, then followed her husband, Sheriff Mark Reed, out west. 5 years earlier, Mark had died in a gunfight behind a storage shed at the edge of town. The story, as people told it over and over, went like this. A bandit named Cole Brannon rode into town and tried to rob the treasury. Mark and a deputy cornered him out back. Folks said they clearly heard Mark shout, "Drop the gun." Then shots rang out. By the time anyone reached the yard, Mark was lying still on the ground, and Cole had vanished into the dark. From that night on, the name Cole Brannon was tied to 4 words: the man who killed the doctor's husband. Hannah had not been there. She only arrived in time to see her husband's shirt soaked in blood and his eyes already closed. Since then, every time she wrapped a bandage around someone's wound, somewhere in the back of her mind, she heard a gunshot she had never actually heard in real life. That night, the wind shifted, carrying with it the faint promise of rare rain. Hannah sat at her desk, copying notes from the day's cases, the oil lamp throwing a tired yellow light across the yellowing pages. The clinic was quiet, just the steady ticking of the clock on the wall. Then came a knock at the door. Not the urgent pounding of panic, but a heavy thud of flesh on wood, followed by silence, as if whoever was out there had to gather himself for a second try. Hannah grabbed her medical bag and walked toward the door, calling out, "Who is it? If it's a broken bone or a bullet, I'll open this door, but the gun stays outside." No answer. Only another dull impact against the door, like a body sliding down it. She unlatched the lock and pulled the door open. A man toppled onto the porch floor, blood soaking his coat, dripping in a dark trail across the boards. His black hair was plastered to his head, his beard rough and uneven, his eyes closed tight. Hannah dropped to her knees on instinct, pressing her hands over the largest patch of blood. "Can you hear me?" she said quickly. "Tell me your name." The man's eyelids twitched. He forced them open, his gaze blurred, then slowly sharpening. In the lamplight, Hannah saw a strange gray pair of eyes, not at all strange to the wanted posters she had been half-consciously avoiding for years. He wheezed, "Cole Brannon." The name hit her chest like a handful of cold sand. Hannah's fingers tightened on the wound without meaning to. "Cole Brannon?" she repeated, her voice dropping low. He gave the slightest nod, his breath breaking. I heard, there's a Dr. Reed in this town," he whispered. "I figured, if I have to die, dying at her door might be fair." Fair. The word slipped through Hannah's heart like an old knife. This was the man the whole town cursed, the man whose name was tied to her husband's death. And now he lay in front of her, his blood spreading across her porch, speaking her name like a confession. Outside, the wind pushed along the empty street, rattling the bat-wing doors of the saloon. A single raindrop fell onto the step and popped softly. Hannah knew one thing very clearly. She did not need to think about it at all. If she shouted, "Cole Brannon is here!" in minutes the townspeople would come running and drag him to the big tree in the square. There was already a rope hanging there from other outlaws they had strung up. They might even thank her for keeping him alive just long enough to pay what he owes. She also knew something else, deeper, something she had tried to bury for years and never quite managed. She was a doctor. She had treated soldiers from both sides during the war. She had bound the wounds of men who admitted to her that they had killed. Once blood was flowing, it did not belong to any side anymore. "Why did you come here?" she asked, her hand still clamped on his wound. Her voice stretched tight. Cole dragged in another breath. "Not to beg you to forgive me," he said, stopping for air between phrases. "I just don't want you living another 10 years with the wrong story." Hannah frowned. The wrong story? That night. He coughed weakly. "It wasn't my finger on the trigger that killed your husband." The words dropped into the tiny clinic like a stone tossed into a deep well. Hannah stared at him, unable to tell what was real and what was the scrambling of a dying man trying to pull someone else down with him. But the blood was still coming, and her hands were already in it. She drew in a breath and said, her tone flat and dry, "If you're going to talk, you have to live long enough to finish. I'm going to stitch you up. As for who you are..." She grabbed the front of his coat and dragged him inside. "We will deal with that later." The clinic door swung shut, and the sound of the wooden bolt sliding back into place rang clearly in the night. Hannah did not know that, in the house across the street, a little boy standing on tiptoe at the window had already seen her pull a bloody body over the threshold. And it would only take one curious pair of young eyes for an entire town to soon learn this much. Tonight, the most hated man in Dusty Ford had knocked on the wrong door, or the right one. Hannah hauled Cole up onto the wooden examination bed, her shoulders straining under the weight of a grown man. Once he was there, she could see it clearly. A bullet hole in his side, blood soaking his shirt. The metallic smell of it mixing with the sharp scent of alcohol in the small room. "You might stay conscious for a while, you might not," she said, her voice dry. "Whatever you want to say it while I can still hear and you can still breathe." Cole parted his lips, his breath a rough rattle. "If you want a confession out of me," he whispered, "remember this. A dying man either tells the truth or he talks nonsense to ease his own soul. You decide what you believe." Hannah did not answer. She cut away the cloth around the wound, her hands so steady that even she was surprised. In the war, she had seen plenty of bullet holes, but never one that came with a name that had haunted her for 5 years. "The bullet is still in there," she said. "If I leave it, you will spike a fever and rot from the inside out. I'm going to take it out. You do not get to pass out." "You could just let me die," Cole muttered. "How half this town would bring you pies to say thank you." "I am not that half of the town," Hannah replied. "I am Mark Reed's wife, and I am also the doctor who swore to save anyone who comes through that door. You are forcing those two parts to fight in my head, but my hands are still working." She poured alcohol onto a strip of cloth and pressed it around the wound. Cole clenched his jaw, staring up at the ceiling. "That night," Hannah said, her voice dragging itself through rust. "They said you fired from by the storage shed my husband from the back door. 2 gunshots, 1 man dead, 1 man gone. What is left to tell?" "There is more," Cole said, breath catching. "That night, I did go for the strongbox. I was a fool. Thought I could grab the money and ride out of here. Mark stopped me. He did not shoot. He said, "Do not do this, Brannon. You can still turn back." I believed him. "And then you shot him," Hannah said, her fingers pressing deeper as she probed for the bullet, tearing a groan out of him. "No." He forced the word out, each syllable hard. "The shot that killed him did not come from my gun. I never got the chance to pull the trigger. Somebody at the side door fired first. I heard glass break, then Mark went down. I fired back, but I shot high. Then people started yelling, 'Cole killed the sheriff!' And I ran. That was the stupidest thing I ever did." Hannah's fingertips found the cold edge of metal. She drew a deep breath and pulled the bullet free in one quick move. Cole roared, his hands clawing at the edge of the bed. The slug dropped into the metal tray with a sharp, short ring. "You will live if infection does not get you," she said, already setting her needle. "Whether you can live in Dusty Ford, that is a different matter." Cole shut his eyes, cold sweat standing on his forehead. "If you want me gone when I heal, I will go," he said hoarsely. "I just needed one person, just one, to hear the whole story before they hang me from that tree." Hannah did not answer. In her mind, she saw Mark's face, so clearly it hurt. If he were alive, what would he do with this man? The answer came to her all at once, so plain and simple she was angry at herself for not seeing it sooner. As long as he's still breathing, he is a patient. Outside, footsteps pounded past the door, then the high voices of children calling to each other. In the house across the street, the boy who had peeked through the curtain was already running toward the saloon. "There is a man all covered in blood at Dr. Reed's," he shouted. "I think he is a bad man." In a small town, news runs faster than the wind. A few minutes later, in the saloon, men were already muttering. Somebody had been shot. Dr. Reed was working on him. Somebody swore they had seen a stranger ride in. The new sheriff, Amos Pike, set his glass down. "Who is Dr. Reed patching up that her light is still on?" he asked. "Nobody has been brawling out on the street tonight." A drunk at the bar answered, too eager. "I told you, there is a stranger in town wearing a gun. Could be Cole Brannon. If he is fool enough to come back, we do not need much of a trial." Amos frowned. The name Cole was like salt on an old scar. But if a wanted man was lying in the doctor's clinic, he could not pretend he had not heard. "All right," Amos said. "I will go have a look." In the clinic, Hannah could already hear hoofbeats on the dusty road outside, each one closer than the last. Like someone was about to knock on a door she had not had time to bolt properly. Hoofbeats stopped right in front of the clinic. Hannah bent over Cole, checking the bandage at his side. The bleeding had slowed, but every breath he took was still heavy. "Listen to me," she said. "If you move too much, those stitches will tear, and you will bleed to death. If people out there see you in here, you will die on a rope. Do you understand?" Cole forced his eyes open. "Looks like tonight I do not have any pretty choices." Out on the porch, a knock sounded. Firm, familiar. "Dr. Reed, it is Amos Pike," the new sheriff called. "Will you open the door for me?" Hannah's eyes swept the room. The only hiding place was the heavy cloth curtain in the corner, where she kept some old crates. "Can you sit up?" she asked. "If you pull, I will try," Cole answered. She slipped an arm under his shoulders and heaved him upright. Together they dragged him behind the curtain. Hannah spread a blanket on the floor and eased him down, close against the wall, then pulled the curtain shut. "Doctor, I know you are awake," Amos said after another knock. "Your lamp is still on." Hannah snatched up a rag and wiped quickly at the worst of the blood near the doorway, then slid the bolt back and opened the door. Amos stood on the porch, his coat dusty from the road. Behind him loomed Joe from the saloon and Hank from the livery. "Do you have a patient tonight?" Amos asked. "I do," Hannah said. "This is a clinic, not a church." Joe pushed forward. "The boy across the street says he saw you hauling a man in here covered in blood. A stranger. Could be Cole Brannan." Hannah held her face steady. "I drag bloody men in here almost every day," she said coolly. "As for strangers, anyone riding into Dusty Ford for the first time is a stranger." Amos lifted a hand to hold Joe back, then looked straight into Hannah's eyes. "Mark was my friend," he said slowly. "You know this town believes Cole killed him. If that man comes back, the law has to be carried out. If you patch him up, you are standing in the middle." "Mark was also my husband," Hannah answered, "which is exactly why I know what he would do. He would ask, 'Is the man still breathing?' And only then would he ask, 'Who is he?'" The wind slid along the porch, whining softly at the crack of the door. At last, Amos let out a breath. "I am not going to search your place tonight," he said. "I respect this clinic, but if I find Cole around here tomorrow, with fresh stitches, I will come back and ask you again." Tomorrow's business, Sheriff," Hannah said. "Tonight, I only have patience." Amos nodded and stepped down off the porch. Joe and Hank followed him back into the dark. Hannah closed the door, dropped the bar into place, and stood still for a moment, listening to her heartbeat slow. Then she turned, went to the corner, and lifted the edge of the curtain. "Still with me?" she asked quietly. In the dimness, Cole let out a long breath. "If this is not a dream," he whispered, "then this is the first time anyone ever chose to stand between me and a rope." "I am standing on the side of the patient," Hannah said. "Do not mix that up. And if you want to keep a few more nights on this earth, from now on you tell it straight. No adding, no leaving out." "Then," Cole rasped, "you might want to lock that door tight, because the next part of this story is not going to help anybody in Dusty Ford sleep easy." Hannah sat down on the chair beside the curtain, her back resting against the wall. She lit a small extra lamp and turned the flame down low, so the light would not spill too brightly into the street. On the other side of the curtain, Cole lay on his side, his breathing still heavy, but more regular now. "All right," she said, her voice low. "You say you didn't pull the trigger that night. Then tell it all, step by step. I've heard this town's version for 5 years. Now it's your turn." Cole was silent for a while, as if he were searching for the least painful place to begin. At last he spoke, slowly. "That day, I didn't come to Dusty Ford for the treasury," he said. "Shuti, I came for Mark Reed." That made Hannah lift her head. "What did you say?" "Mark arrested me once," Cole went on. "Years back. I was a fool then, shooting birds out of the sky, lifting a horse here and there. He locked me up for a night, fed me, and said, 'You're smarter than this kind of life. Don't make me meet you again at the end of a gun.' I didn't promise him anything, but I remembered." He drew a deeper breath, his voice roughening. "A month before he died, I heard there was money missing from the treasury here in Dusty Ford, and no sign of a lock being forced. Had to be someone on the inside. I got blamed for jobs in other towns, so I got curious. I slipped back here, Wanted to see if that sheriff from before still had the same clean look in his eyes. Hannah remembered Mark in those last weeks. The way he spoke less, stared out the window longer. When she asked, he had only said, "I'm thinking through some business at the bank." She had thought then he meant debts. "When did he talk to you?" she asked. "That night, behind the treasury," Cole answered. "It wasn't an accident. He left a scrap of paper under the saddle of a horse at a way station I used sometimes. It said, 'If you still owe me one time of not shooting an innocent man, meet me behind the storage shed Friday night.' I went, no gang, no mask, just a gun, because only a fool walks around unarmed after dark." The lamplight trembled slightly. A chill crept along Hannah's spine. "What did Mark say?" "He told me." Cole closed his eyes and repeated it word for word. "I think someone in there is taking the money. I can't prove it. Folks won't believe me unless I catch someone in the act. You pretend to rob the place. I'll arrest you while it's happening. I'll see who panics." Hannah sat bolt upright. "You're telling me my husband asked a man like you to stage a robbery?" "He needed somebody the whole town would gladly blame," Cole said, tiredness in his voice. "He told me, if I'm wrong, you run. If I'm right, you help me drag the real face into the light. Then I let you go, and we're square." I said yes. That was my first mistake. I thought I was doing something decent. Hannah remembered that night now in a different color. Mark had worn a heavier coat, kissed her forehead a little longer than usual. All he had said was, "I'll be late, don't wait up." "What happened at the shed?" she asked, her hands folded tightly in her lap. "We did it just like we'd planned," Cole said. "I came in from the back door." Mark moved along the side. He shouted, "Drop the gun!" I stopped and raised my hands. And then, the shot came from the little side window. Not from me. Not from where Mark was. I heard glass shatter and saw him jerk and go down. I spun around and caught a glimpse of someone at that window, smoke still coming out of the barrel. Hannah's heart was pounding so hard she could hear it. "Did you see the face?" she asked. Cole was quiet for a long time. When he answered, his voice dropped low, as though he was afraid of his own words. "I did," he said. "Just for a moment. But enough." It was Amos Pike. He was still a deputy then. The name Amos dropped between them like a rock. "You're accusing the man who's sheriff now of killing my husband?" Hannah asked, her eyes narrowing. "I'm telling you what I saw," Cole replied. "After that, I heard people shouting out front. I panicked. I fired twice up into the air, and I ran. And Amos let me carry the blame from that night on. He got the badge. I got turned into the devil in every story told over a bottle." Part of Hannah wanted to shove the whole thing away. Amos had helped her more than once after Mark died, bringing patients to her, fixing shingles on her roof, standing beside Mark's grave on the day they buried him. "Why come back and say all this now?" she asked. Cole sighed. "Chiquita, because I heard Amos is fixing to sell off some public land to the bank," he said. Just like the kind of man Mark was worried about. "And I'm tired of running. If I have to die, I want at least one person to know Mark didn't die because of some stupid outlaw alone. He died caught between two things. A plan meant to drag the truth out, and a bullet fired in a hurry to bury it." Hannah closed her eyes, a string of images flickering by. Mark coming home months before his death saying, "Amos is hot-headed, but he's a good man." Mark having a quiet argument with someone on the bank's front steps. The times Amos had looked away just a fraction too soon when she mentioned the night at the shed. "Why didn't you come back sooner?" she asked. "You already know why," Cole answered softly. "Between a sheriff the whole town trusts and a thief who's already done time, who do you think they'll listen to? I came back a few weeks ago, hoping to catch Amos alone. Before I could do anything, some bounty hunters took a shot at me on the road. One round caught my side. I rode here because I figured, if there is anyone in this world who both loved Mark and understands that blood is blood, not gossip, it would be you." The room was so quiet you could hear the clock ticking, the rough breathing of the wounded man, and something very small inside Hannah beginning to crack. "What do you want me to do with this story?" she asked at last. "Not save me," Cole said. "I am worn out. You can hand me over to Amos in the morning if you like. I just want you to know, if Dusty Ford ever puts up a statue of an honest hero somewhere, that statue ought to wear the right face. Mark Reed was never a fool who trusted the wrong man. He died because he trusted the right thing, at the wrong time." Hannah rose, walked over to the table, picked up the bullet she had just taken out of him, and laid it in her palm. A tiny bit of metal, cold and heavy, sitting there like a question. Out on the street, a dog barked somewhere, then fell silent. Behind the curtain, the man the town hated most lay still, his life and his story both placed in the hands of the widow of the man he said he owed. Hannah looked down at the bullet one more time, then closed her fingers around it. "If what you're telling me is the truth," she whispered, "then tomorrow morning, it won't just be one man getting dragged into the light." Morning in Dusty Ford was quieter than usual. Hannah stood for a long time in front of a small wooden box on her shelf, the one where she had kept the bullet she had taken from Mark's body 5 years ago. She opened the lid and looked at it, lying there beside the fresh slug she had pulled from Cole's side. 2 little pieces of metal, no bigger than beans, but heavier than any handful of dirt on her husband's grave. She slipped them both into her pocket, put on her coat, and locked the clinic door behind her. The sheriff's office sat on the corner by the square. Amos Pike was at his desk, coat thrown over the back of his chair, hat hanging on a nail. He looked up as Hannah came in, surprise flickering in his eyes before his face settled again. "Dr. Reed," he began. "About last night, We need to talk," Hannah cut him off. "Not about last night, about the night 5 years ago." Amos set both hands on the desk and studied her more carefully. "Have you found something?" he asked. Hannah took out the 2 bullets and laid them on the desk between them. "One of these I took from Cole Brannon last night," she said, her voice even. "One I took from my husband. Same size, same type, same markings. Cole's gun uses a different round. He was not the only one shooting that night." Amos did not look down. He kept his eyes on Hannah, as if weighing how far she had already walked. "What are you saying, Hannah?" "I'm asking," she answered slowly, "if Mark was the only one shouting, 'Drop the gun' that night, or if there was someone else at a window, a little too quick on the trigger." For a long moment, the room held only the sound of wagon wheels rolling by outside. At last, Amos drew a long breath, like something that had been stuck in him for years. "Mark believed somebody in town was bleeding the treasury," Amos said. "He was right. The bank and a few landowners. They wanted to push farmers deeper into debt. Mark wanted to drag all that into the light. I told him to cool his head. He said a sheriff's badge had to stay clean, clear through." He stopped, his eyes dropping at last to the bullets. "I was at the window that night, Amos went on. I heard him shout. I saw a figure with a gun. I fired. I did not wait to see who it was. That was my first mistake. The second was when Mark hit the ground, and I did not say I shot him by accident. I let the name Cole hang there instead. Heat rose in Hannah's chest, then dropped into a cold heaviness. You let this whole town say my husband was gunned down by a bandit, she said quietly, when he died from a bullet that came from a man wearing the same star. Amos bowed his head. He is still a hero, he said. It is just that the man who shot him never earned the badge he wore. I told myself, if Cole disappeared, if folks could pin it all on him, the town could go on believing in the law. I'd carry the rest. Thought I could live with that. His hands clenched together. But every time I looked at you, I knew I could not, Amos said. And now, Cole has come back. Hannah drew herself up a little straighter. He did not come back to shoot, she said. He came back ready to die for the right reason. He is willing to let you hang him just so he can finish the story. That, she held Amos's gaze, is cleaner than what you've been doing these last 5 years. Amos nodded slowly, as if accepting a verdict that needed no paper. What do you want from me? He asked. I want 2 things, Hannah said. First, you will not lay a hand on Cole while he is in my sickbed. He is a witness, not a carcass to string up so the town can feel better. Second, you give Mark back the truth, even if it means taking that badge off your chest. Amos looked out the window, toward the bank where the flag snapped and fluttered in the wind. Then he unpinned the sheriff's star and set it on the desk beside the bullets. My men won't go near your clinic, he said. You can let Cole go when he is strong enough to ride. As for me and Dusty Ford, he let out a tired laugh. There is no doctor alive who can fix that. You're going to run? Hannah asked. I'm going to leave, Amos said, without this badge. If someday people want to hear it, you can tell them this. Sheriff Amos Pike shot his friend by mistake and lived like a coward for 5 more years. Mark died that same night, still doing what he believed was right. Hannah watched him for a long time. At least you finally said the words I've been waiting to hear for 5 years, she said softly. That he did not die because he was a fool. He died because he trusted the wrong man. Amos slipped the badge into his pocket and left the bullets on the desk. He trusted me too, he murmured. That's the worst part. He picked up his hat and walked out of the office, leaving the door unlocked behind him. That afternoon, Hannah went back to the clinic. Cole had managed to push himself up, sitting with his back against the wall. You were gone a long time, he said, voice still weak. I thought the sheriff might get here before you did. The sheriff just rode out of town, Hannah answered. He did not take his badge with him. Cole studied her face, trying to read whether that was victory or defeat. You believe me? He asked. I believe my Mark, Hannah said. He would not have used some filthy brute to fake a holdup in the treasury. If you say you helped him because there was still some decent scrap left in you, then I believe that part. And the part where you were a fool who fired into the air and ran, I believe that too. Cole gave a short laugh, then winced and grabbed his side. So, what do you do with me now? You are not going to die at the end of Dusty Ford's rope, Hannah said. Tonight, when it's dark, Tom will lead you down the South Road. You leave. If anyone asks, I'll say, Cole Brannon died on my table from blood loss. In this town's eyes, the old story will not change in a hurry. But in Mark's eyes, I think he is big enough to let you go. Cole looked down at his hands, then back up at her. You are not afraid folk will say you hit a criminal? He asked. I have lived 5 years under a story that was not true, Hannah replied. A few more years under another rumor is not as bad as living the rest of my life having done nothing with the truth. She handed him a small cloth bag. There is some medicine in there, a little money, and a folded paper, she said. If someday you get yourself caught in some other place, you hand that paper to any judge who knows how to read. It is my statement, signed by Dr. Hannah Reed, about the night Mark died. Cole took the bag, his fingers trembling. Thank you, he said softly. Not for the money, for one listening. Hannah nodded. If you want to pay Mark back, she added, then live cleaner than you have so far. Do not make me hear your name on another wanted poster. I have heard it enough. That night, as the lamps came on in Dusty Ford, a thin man with his waist wrapped in white bandages rode a tired horse out of town along the South Trail, a single young cowboy walking beside him, leading the reins. Are you really Cole Brannan? Tom asked quietly. Maybe I used to be, Cole answered. Haida. But if you do not mind, tonight you can call me the fellow Dr. Reed told. Go, and do not come back with a gun in your hand. Tom laughed and shook his head. I do not think she said it exactly like that, he said. That was the meaning, Cole sighed. They stopped at the ridge where the lights of Dusty Ford had shrunk to a few faint yellow smudges in the distance. Cole turned his horse for one last look. On the far side of town, Hannah stood at Mark's grave, the headstone plain and simple. She laid her hand on the cold stone. I have done what I could with the rest of the story, she whispered. The rest, I leave to heaven and to people to sort out. The night wind moved through the dry grass, carrying the smell of earth and a faint trace of antiseptic still clinging to her clothes. Somewhere out in the darkness, the sound of a horse moved farther and farther away. The next day, Dusty Ford opened for business as usual. The market bustled, voices rose and fell, and someone still spoke the name Cole Brannan the way you mention an old devil in a campfire tale. But among all those whispering mouths, there was at least one different kind of silence. The silence of a widow standing in her clinic, one hand stained with the blood of the most hated man in town, the other hand closing around 2 bullets, one that killed her husband, one that had nearly killed someone else, like the 2 ends of a story she had finally heard in full. And for people who have lived through too many rumors, sometimes it is enough that one person keeps the truth in their own heart. That alone can be called a decent ending. If you are still here tonight, all the way down to these last lines, then maybe somewhere inside you, you too have carried a story that was told wrong, or a hurt no one ever stayed long enough to really listen to. Out west, folks like to remember the ones who shot fast. But I believe it is people like Hannah, the ones who hold on to the truth, even when a whole town does not want to hear it, whose hearts deserve to be remembered the longest. If you would like to sit down with us each evening and hear more stories of love and life, of rough-edged people who still keep a little kindness alive inside, go ahead and subscribe to the channel so you do not miss a thing. Click like if Hannah and Mark's story touched something in you, and leave a comment to tell me, have you ever seen a story told wrong in your own life? And do not forget to ring the notification bell, so that whenever the sun goes down over the Old West and the voice of the storyteller begins, there will always be a seat waiting for you here.